Welcome to another episode of the BrainFood Show. This one is a continuation of our series that is related to space, and in lots of different ways. With what did we talk about last week? I remember the Beastie Boys came up, and then people pooping in dishes came up.
Yeah, the space DJs and the pillow knots and stuff. Oh yeah, we're going a lot more into the pooping and things on this one.
Who doesn't love some poop talk?
Yeah, last week we also mentioned it, funny enough.
But don't worry, we'll keep it professional.
Yeah, this one is a deep dive into that. Yeah, for science.
Yeah, I think last week you teased that that one of the things in today's episode took you through 171 pages of NASA transcripts while trying to solve a mystery that has something to do with poo.
Yeah.
So, we'll dive into look at all this stuff you've got to look forward to, listener.
This was great because, how Carl Smallwood, who we've had on before on the interview, he writes a lot for Today, I found out, for people who don't know, but yeah, he loves the jokes.
Now has a big YouTube channel of his own, Fact Fiend. Check it out.
Yeah, now finally. Fact Fiend. So he loves the jokes, and I like when it's appropriate, I let him keep the jokes in and also try to add my own. And so this one, we had a lot of fun with this one, just because it was.
I love how you have one appropriateness filter, and then I'll be recording something for YouTube, and I'll be like,
I do.
Can't say that.
Carl has no filter whatsoever. And this is reflected on his fact feed.
Yes, it is.
And then I have the filter of where I can imagine the comments, and I don't want to deal with them. So I'll be like, no, we're not going to say that. And then, YouTube, you got to have a sort of another layer of filter, which I do. I do go back through the articles and stuff when I'm doing, and I do actually cut things out because I know YouTube's another level of filter that we need.
There's also, my face is saying this, and I'm like,
yeah.
I know Carl doesn't mind this at all, but I'm like, no. I don't know. Some things are a bit too close to the line for me sometimes.
This is the beauty of Fact Fiend, though, is you get the unfiltered Carl.
It's what it's for, exactly.
Yeah, unfiltered Carl Smallwood, but the same type of fact thing, and it's he's funny. You should go. Anyone should go watch it.
He's a very funny dude. Last week, I think a lot of our follow-up focused on slavery. We talked about, or not really slavery, kind of more
kind of a quasi
multiple violations of the Geneva Convention, getting people to work on farms. 1/4 of the agricultural work in the UK being done by German prisoners in 1946. 46. Thank you, obviously. Yeah, that would be weird if it was 64. It'd be they really stuck around. So I had a bit of follow-up. This isn't actually from... I'd like to start with this one because I've got, I don't know if it's a bone to pick, but because you were like, dude, a couple of episodes ago, there are not good movies from games. You were like, Prince of Persia is the only one. Prince of Persia stands at
and even that,
the only one.
It's not an amazing movie. It's just one of those that's sort of entertaining to watch, like a fun ride type of thing. It's not super quality, but it's at least entertaining and reasonably well acted and done.
Yeah. So I went away. And I did some research, and I came back with, actually, at first I was kind of like, oh, Damon's right. These are objectively not good movies. However, I'm going to contend that a couple of these are good movies. One of them you picked up on as well, Resident Evil.
2002? Yeah.
Which is dumb and stupid, but it's also amazing, and I really enjoyed it.
For what it is, that sort of horror action, it's great. It's great for that. It's not, yeah.
Big evil corporation, the Umbrella Corporation. And I thought this was, I like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Not my best example. In fact, I got a couple more, which I didn't tell you about ahead of time. Dude, Tomb Raider with Angelina Jolie from 2000 and something. I liked that.
Yeah, I considered that one.
I was also a teenage boy, so I probably liked it a bit more than I should have.
Naturally, I considered that one, but it was it's just a little too corny, in parts, I thought. But again, that is one that I actually have. It's one of my many sort of background movies that I have when I'm doing certain tasks that can, divert my brain to something else. So I'll have that, and I do that. That is one I use quite often for just sort of in the background.
And how about this? This is, I don't know because I've not actually seen it myself, but I think this will appeal to your sci-fi sensibilities. Tron.
The original or the new one?
Either or.
What are you saying? Because this is going to ruin all credibility of myself. Is that movie? Was it based on a game, or did the game come after and it was a movie about a game?
Okay, hold on. Now I'm going to lose all my credibility because I probably pulled these movies from a list from I don't know, dodgywebsite.com of
you can
movies
still,
that were from games.
You could still argue that it is based on sort of the whole computer game idea and stuff, which I think works. And I was going to say the part that's going to ruin my credibility is the second Tron, the Tron Legacy, is actually one of my favorite movies of all time.
I've not seen it.
Like it probably in the top 20. And I know it's a stupid movie and the plot doesn't, it's got like 5 seconds of plot, a little bit similar to one we'll mention, a little bit John Wick. But I like it. The music, the soundtrack is amazing. And I'm always a sucker for movies that have amazing soundtracks.
I have listened to the Tron Legacy soundtrack a few times based on your recommendations. I've not seen the movie. Yeah. It's a very good soundtrack.
Yeah, it's great. Like when you're tired and you're trying to, bog through 50 pages of some boring history textbook or something, this, like researching, and this, you put on the Tron soundtrack, just blast it in your ears, and it just wakes you right up and you're good, going.
Okay, I've done a little bit of digging. I have to apologize because for one, Tron Legacy was based on a game, which was based on the original film, Tron. Tron by Walt Disney Pictures in 1982 was the one that kicked off the media franchise, so it doesn't count. Yeah. But Tomb Raider and Resident Evil are objectively bad films that I still think are good.
Yeah, well, they passed the entertaining rubric or whatever.
Is anyone arguing that Prince of Persia: Sands of Time is an objectively good movie?
No, I don't think so. I think it's that entertaining. It's like an entertaining and reasonably well acted, and even if elements of it don't really, the plot isn't great, but it's just kind of an entertaining one, and I think that does. But technically, Resident Evil would be the first one because it was 2002 and Prince of Persia was 2010. So yeah, I completely forgot about Resident Evil, which also, to be fair, I was like 20 when I watched Resident Evil, and I haven't watched it since. So my memory of it is like it was reasonably good, but I don't really remember.
I think I've seen most of the Resident Evil movies because I think there was a time where I'd just be like, yeah, I'll go to the movies, and I went to the movies a lot. Yeah, and I think it was back when I was single or whatever, and it'd be like I don't know, I'd just go to the movies by myself. Nowadays I've got to go to the movies and choose something that both parties will enjoy, rather than like the zombie movie with the evil corporation where I should be like, sure, I'll go see that alone. But these are fun movies.
Yeah, like, and that's the Tron Legacy. Speaking of one of my favorite movies, this is gonna kill some people too, but my second daughter is actually named Cora. I liked the name from the movie. The one of the main characters, which you haven't seen, is named Cora. And spelled in a weird way, but yeah.
Did you take the weird spelling as well?
Yes, I did take the weird spelling, which is where everyone hates it. Everyone's like, really? But no, my wife and I like
what is the spelling? Let me guess. Hang on, I see. What was the name?
This fits on multiple levels because it's Quorra. Now go ahead and Google. Go ahead and Google. No. Go ahead and Google that and see what comes up.
Okay. We've got to pick up the pace on this episode. I'm Googling right now. I've got the Cora Stone Company. Ooh, no. Memory Alpha. That's probably where I should be heading, right?
Yeah. So spell it slightly off. Remove, I believe, one of the R's.
Well, this is a Star Trek reference.
Remove Quora. Go with that one. So it fits. This one fits on multiple levels.
Well, this is the place to answer the answers.
The place to share knowledge
and better understand the world. I love this website, by the way, Quora.
Yeah, this is actually one of like you have like Yahoo Answers and stuff, which is just
Quora's like good Yahoo Answers.
Yeah, it's like the one that actually is reasonably accurate most of the time. I mean, not all the time, obviously, but like Yahoo Answers, you can just assume whatever they say, whatever's said on there is wrong. Like in general. Like this is actually one of the explicit rules to any of my authors. Like if you ever try to use Yahoo Answers as a reference, no. That doesn't work. I'm just going to automatically assume whatever is said there was false.
There will be punishments.
Explicitly, I'm going to automatically think you're not a good researcher if you ever did that.
Yahoo Answers.
Lose complete faith in you. But so going back to the games, right? So so you have Resident Evil 2002, but I think there's one that sort of counts that was before this and is amazing, and almost no one has probably
I know what seen it. Is. You told me this before, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Wing Commander 4, The Price of Freedom, the computer game, 1996. And later, I know people are thinking, oh, what about that 1999 Wing Commander game, which was awful, like so bad. But no. Go back and play Wing Commander 4, The Price of Freedom. And first off, just hear this list of actors who are in this game, as there's probably a couple hours of footage.
Sorry, I'm confused. I thought we were talking about this before. This is the cutscenes for the game?
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple hours of movie footage, basically, and well filmed. And the special effects aren't that bad. And the actors in this, let's just start off number one. Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, is in this. Yeah. And he's the main character and does an amazing job. He's a good actor. So then you have Jason Bernard, which that's the guy from, I want to say, While You Were Sleeping, I think, is one he's in. He plays the boss. He's
Tom
in a lot
Wilson,
of things.
I know, though.
Pretty much everyone I'm going to list here, if people want to Google, you would recognize their faces instantly. Tom Wilson, Biff from Back to the Future. He's kind of the sidekick of the main. He goes by the Maniac, and there's his call sign in the thing.
McFly.
Malcolm McDowell. Yeah, Malcolm McDowell's in this as a main character. John Rhys Davies. Yeah.
Second time John Rhys Davies has come up on the podcast. Maybe even the third, because I remember talking passionately about my love of sliders at some point. And then also he was in Galaxy Quest. That's that movie with Tim Allen.
Which is an amazing movie, by the way.
Yes,
it's hilarious. I thought it would be so bad, and so maybe my expectations were so low, but when I actually watched it once when on vacation, and it is so funny.
He's like, take her out. The guy at the helm's like, I have no idea how to take her out. It's like, they based it off your finger movements. Just do what you do in the TV show. Amazing. Or
the character, which Sigourney Weaver, of course, is just fitting for this, but she also plays the character whose job it is just to repeat what the computer says.
Oh man, I gotta see this movie again. Okay, so lots of famous actors. About you were saying there's enough. You think they could cut Wing Commander the game, Wing Commander 4: The Price of Freedom, into a movie?
Yeah, it's an amazing movie, and we got some more. Mark Dacascos, I'm not quite sure how to do, but he's in a ton of movies. You'd recognize him instantly if you saw his face. But he's also in the upcoming John Wick 3. Okay. He's in that. Francois Chow, who plays Dr. Chang from Lost, is where people probably remember him from. Yeah, so we got John Spencer from recognize him, Leo McGarry from West Wing, character. Yeah,
this is quite the roster.
Yeah, Richard Ryle, I think Ryle is maybe how you pronounce his name. He's the Office Space, the jump to conclusions guy, and he's also in a lot of other stuff. But that's probably where people would recognize him. You know, the guy who gets backs out his car and the thing, and he makes the jump to conclusions. Matt,
is that Office Space?
Totally Office Space, the movie, right?
Yeah, with the fill out the D24 thing. The DPS reports.
Yeah, Office Space. Yeah, that one. He's the guy who's like his idea. He gets fired, obviously, and he's going to kill himself. So he backs out and he gets hit by a car, and then he gets a big settlement. And he's like, "Lucky me."
Yeah. Now, okay, this is ringing bells.
Then he makes the jump to conclusions, Matt. But he's in a ton of other stuff. So there's him. Just a ton. Like everybody in there's a big name actor that you would recognize, and they have a couple hours of footage. Is great script, great story. Everything is great. It is just 1,000 times better than the 1999 Wing Commander movie, which was kind of based loosely off this Wing Commander 4.
Did any of these people appear in Wing Commander the movie?
I don't think so. And the acting in Wing Commander movie was awful. I think if I remember correctly, the Wing Commander actually kind of combined Wing Commander 3 and Wing Commander 4, the games, to base it, and it was so bad. But if they'd have just...
How does Luke Skywalker think, I'll appear in, I'll do this computer game? But
it was quite a big budget at the time, and I mean, I don't know, he was doing a lot of voice acting at the time, so maybe he was get his face back on the screen or whatever. He's the main character, and it's even got this great scene. Like the end of the game is not like this great battle or anything like that, as you might think. It literally is this thing where he's in the sort of the Senate type building for the Federation of Planets or whatever they called it. I can't remember now. And so you have John Rhys Davies as the head of this, and he has to sort of argue against going to war, and it's like this cool like dramatic scene, where that's the thing, and against the Malcolm McDowell character who's the bad guy. It's a great scene where they're just kind of like sparring with words, and that's the end of the game, like the thing, and it's really well acted and good script, everything. So that was sort of a great movie, but also just a game.
I'm sorry they disappointed. You must have been crushed in 1999.
I thought I was very excited about this movie, and that I should have, known it would be bad based on the actors that they cast for the role. So,
do you want to do any more follow-up, or should we just move into the main content? I suppose we could. I don't know, we're already sometime in. Do you want to do reviews at the end today?
Or we could just skip them and do it next time.
Let's do it. But do remember we have a competition. If you want to leave us a review once we get 200 reviews.
On iTunes.
On iTunes, but leave a review on any platform because they all count. Wait, I shouldn't say that because there's probably like a billion different small podcasting apps. The big guys, Podcast Addict, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Castbox. Spotify. Can you leave reviews on Spotify? Is that a thing?
I would think so.
I haven't actually checked. You can't for music, at least as far as I'm aware. Anyway, all of that good stuff. And we're giving away a $200 Amazon gift card to one person from those 200 reviews at random. So if you already left a review, you're in for free. How great is that? Okay.
Yeah, and also we're doing a social media one where you just have to say something. You could say like an interesting fact we say, just repeat it, and just you just have to use the hashtag #TheBrainFoodShow or BrainFoodShow, and we will find it and enter you in the contest. After we get a few hundred of those, we will go ahead and draw a winner.
I'd like to see if anyone can trump our movie suggestions. If anyone can come up with a game or even suggestions. I reckon that we could get some good... I'd like to see suggestions for games that would actually make a good movie. I was trying to think of that, but I got none.
Yeah, and any we missed, like that we might have missed. And anyone who's played Wing Commander 4, The Price of Freedom. Am I totally off base here? Or was that just an amazing game movie?
That's what we're looking at. Hashtag BrainFoodShow. We'll be watching it on Twitter. Let's move on to astronauts defecating.
So how do astronauts go to bathroom in space? And we're going to meander a little bit on this one to tell some funny stories and
we're
things.
We're going to meander?
Yeah. No, but like in a very focused way this time. Now, before NASA, this was even a problem, people were asking NASA already, and how are you going to solve the whole going to bathroom in space problem, like once you get people up there? But NASA didn't really think this would be a problem. They weren't really planning for it initially. I mean, I'm sure they were long-term thinking about the issue, but when Alan Shepard was first, strapped to the candle, as he said, his famous little light this candle.
Light this candle.
Line. He was strapped to it. They weren't really thinking about it because it was just going to be, what was it? It was just going to be a 16-minute flight, right? So he was just in his little spacesuit thing. But the problem was, so there had already been tons of delays. He was supposed to be the first, human in space, but then the delays ended up mounting up, and so then Yuri
Gagarin.
There we go. So he ends up winning the race there. So there you have Alan Shepard. He's strapped there, and for 4 hours, he's just sitting there as delay after delay is happening, and he eventually has to go pee. Like, he's just a thing that needs to happen, and he's like, what do I do? You guys need to just... And he gives his little light this candle famous line to just, let's get this mission going. He didn't even care at this point, but they were like, all right, well... So as he's sitting there waiting, his bladder is full, and they're like, well, you can either A... continue to hold it, or B, just wet yourself.
Hold it until what? I mean, at the launch of that thing, the physical stress on your body.
I wouldn't think this would be a good idea. I wouldn't want to do that, because you can technically, in certain severe enough, if you're strapped in the right way, you get severe enough accidents, you can burst your bladder. That's a thing that can, and that's a fatal thing quite often, just because you get all that stuff circulating around in your body. Not good.
Right, yeah, if you really need to pin, if you're in a car accident.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like a thing that, I don't think it's a thing that happens a lot, but I do know it happens because my brother's a paramedic, and he has mentioned that is a thing that sometimes does happen.
Burst bladder? Scott has seen this?
Yes, he has seen this. I don't think it's super common, but it is a thing that can happen.
I feel like I would have heard about it a bit more if like burst bladder was a thing. It's like, oh, John, why are you in hospital? Burst bladder. Classic.
Well, yeah, they would, I think if this was like a thing that happened a lot, they would be like, never have a full bladder, like stop and go to the bathroom. But I don't think it's quite that severe of an issue, but it can happen in the right circumstances. So anyways, so he's sitting there, and he decides to pee, basically. There was some concern, because the problem is he's got all these biosensors like hooked up to him, and they were like, well, this might short it out. And this might give you a little shock too if like things short out in a certain way. So let's unplug those. You're going to pee, you're going to wet yourself. And then we'll plug them back in, and hopefully they'll work. And they plugged them back in. They did not work. So that was bad, because part of the thing was to study what would happen to the human body as he's doing this. So, they lost out on some of that. But so here he is, the first American in space, this glorious, like written down in history, second human in there. And he's just, he does it while soaking in his own urine.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it's a good time. Now we have moving on. So now NASA's like, all right, now we actually do need to think about this. So you have Gus Grissom's Mercury Redstone 4 mission, which is on July 21st, 1961. And their solution to this problem was to give him what amounted to basically 2 layers of rubber underwear.
Okay, so I was reading about this before like we got into the show today, and I'm trying to work out like how did the logistics of this work.
I assume his penis would stick between the 2 layers, and then he would just... If he needed to go, he would go, and the idea was most of the liquid would be trapped between the 2 rubber layers, and then that would be kind of protect it from the sensitive electronics, and so it's not quite as bad as just wetting yourself. And so this was their ingenious solution, which was not a good solution.
No.
They got better. They got better though. So when you have John Glenn, moving on to John Glenn becoming the first American to orbit.
Yeah.
So he had the
By the
4
way,
hour plus.
just as a side note here, I very recently saw Hidden Figures for the first time, which does deal with this period of history. Have you seen this?
I haven't, but yeah, I've heard it's quite good.
You'd like this.
Yeah, I've heard it's quite good. But yeah, so he's a 4 hour plus Mercury Atlas 6 mission on February of 1962. And so what he did was they basically came up with this sort of sealed system that was essentially like a condom-like device that would stick on but open-ended, and so then it would attach to like a bag.
A really ineffective condom.
Yeah. So he would just pee in it, and this sort of system had already been around, and so it's weird that they didn't just automatically use this in the first place, because so like Air Force pilots and things had used similar systems, but in this case they sort of modified it so that it would just be stuck permanently on, like until the mission was done, then they could take it off. So it wasn't something,
well, with Shepard's thing, he wasn't supposed to be on the launch pad for so long, was he? It was supposed to be a much quicker thing. So they probably thought he'll be up, he'll be down. No, because it's very short.
Even then, delays happen, with things like weather and things. They have to wait out, or technical things. So I don't know. It seems like an easy thing to just kind of plop on. But and then when they
got in the fighter jets.
Moving to the rubber underwear thing, like why did they have that interim
step?
To
that? Why?
Yeah. Why not just sort of have this modified thing that was just kind of designed to stay on, and then they could go to pee if they needed to or whatever. So
it sounds uncomfortable, but I'd choose it over the rubber underwear
not great
thing.
And this is a theme, like even today, that astronauts do not like the way they have to go to the bathroom in space. It's just not a good time.
There's got to be a reason, right? Rather than putting on some like weird condom peeing device, why not just have like a high pressure, like you pee in the rough direction of something, and then there's just extremely high pressure. I guess that's quite dangerous.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that in a bit, because they do have, when we're talking about what they do in like the spaceships themselves, it is something like that we'll get into. But and yes, that pressure thing is a potential issue, as we'll talk about.
Glad to see it picked up on that.
Yeah, so as things advanced and people were spending more and more time in space, so it brings us to the Apollo 11 astronauts. By this time, they had sort of, I'm not going to say perfected, but they had a better system. So they had the urine and fecal containment system that was worn by the astronauts in their spacesuits, right? So they would, and again, this was for the front. It was basically like the condom-like device that would stick on in the back, literally, this was a bag that had adhesive around the edge that you would just stick to your butt, and then you put on your little spandex over that, and that was their solution at this point.
Well, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, this is not good when you're, and then again, this is when you're in the spacesuit. So in the spaceships, they did something different, which we'll talk about now, because now we're going to get into the teased Apollo 10 mission and talk about some stuff that happened there. So sort of officially, like, what was the point of the Apollo 10 mission? 1969 was just a dress rehearsal for the Apollo 11. They literally were going through all the same stuff except for actually landing on the moon. But they also took the LEM out, partially come down to the moon and then just brought it back up. They didn't land. And it was kind of funny because NASA actually specifically, the astronauts are known to be a bit roguish and do
what if they landed? Yeah,
so NASA was worried that Thomas Stafford and Eugene Cernan, what do you think, Kernan?
I don't say Cernan, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Cernan, they were worried that they would just go ahead and land because they could. They had all the stuff.
They got all the gear.
They didn't give them enough fuel to actually land. That was the thing. So they were like, no, you won't.
Or did they just not tell them?
Yeah, they did not. They did not. So if they landed, they would not have enough fuel to go back up. So they gave them enough to do their mission, but no more, because they were worried that they would just go ahead and be, we're here. We got all this stuff. Let's just go down.
Get ready to be made one of the most famous people in history. Now who's Thomas Stafford, but who hasn't heard of Neil Armstrong?
Yeah. And just a quick aside to the aside there. The interesting thing about these LEM engines, because of the way they were designed,
what
they
is
were
LEM?
kind of
lunar.
The lunar module.
Okay.
So they were, the type of fuel they used was really corrosive. And so it was such that it would kind of burn out the engine once it was done. Like
I've heard about this, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so they couldn't test fire it. Obviously they tested the engine design, but in the actual LEM itself, the engines each time had never actually been fired. So so you have this thing built, by the cheapest contractors and everything that's built. And they're just assuming, normally they would test all this stuff before they actually use it in the live thing. And then they would go over and make sure everything's still functional. But in this case, they were not fired until they actually went to go, land on the moon and do that. So it was just kind of trusting that there was no manufacturer error.
Can you imagine pressing that button? You'd be like, please, 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 please.
Yeah, hopefully this works. But speaking of that, when they were testing this to try to see about the not real landing, but the fake landing, they ended up putting something in the computer wrong. They put duplicate commands into the flight computer, and this caused the LEM to start spinning almost out of control. And because of this, they actually got to the point where they were just a few revolutions away from basically the system being, the situation being unrecoverable. So they would have just crashed into the moon. But They did recover kind of at the last minute with the fuel they had and everything.
That must be super intense.
Yeah, and it was all just because they put in duplicate commands into the flight computer, and that didn't work out. So, but they ended up, they were fine in the end.
That's not how you want to be the first man on the moon.
No, that wouldn't be good.
A mangled corpse of an astronaut.
Yeah. Coming back to the Apollo 10 mission. So why are we talking about this in relation to that? Besides the fact that we are going to talk about the specific way they would go to the bathroom in...
Yeah, we got to bring this back around to poop at some point.
Yeah, in the space shuttle, there was an incident aboard the Apollo 10 that no one ever talks about. And it's noteworthy to this current discussion because it was when suddenly, during the mission, they're orbiting the moon, and all of a sudden, a couple pieces of poop out of nowhere are just floating around the module that the command module for several minutes. And so, yeah, this happened on the 6th day of the Apollo 10 mission as they were orbiting the moon. And so the NASA has very detailed transcripts of everything that's happening here. And the first person to notice it was the Commander Tom Stafford, aforementioned. And so, yeah, John Young was the other one, and then the Eugene Cernan. So, yeah, Stafford initially notices the floating poop, and he exclaims, "Oh," quickly followed by the bemused,
"Who did it?" You mean it's a tiny quote. Simon can read this one.
Yeah, so the next crew member, Young, notices as well.
He let out a, "Where did that come from?"
Yeah, as the fecal matter slowly was in his eye line. And then, Cernan was the last to see it, and he was alerted by Stafford, and Stafford also at the same time happened to just, it was on alerted ground control by saying quite matter-of-factly,
"Give me a napkin, quick. There's a turd floating through the air."
And one thing to be clear here, if you read through these NASA transcripts, they are not the TV-friendly type. Like, they swear constantly. They say very inappropriate things constantly. It's quite amusing, when they're... I mean, it's all recorded, but it's not
everything they're saying recorded. So, like, even when they're, like, going to
the
bed,
transcripts.
Like,
yeah, the transcripts, anytime they're talking to... I don't think everything they're saying to themselves, like they can turn off the communication with ground control and everything, but everything with ground control is recorded. And quite a lot of the stuff between themselves when they are mic'd up and everything. But not everything, as you'll see. There is one thing that when we were attempting to solve the mystery of whodunit, there is one thing that's not recorded.
So of course this is the aforementioned 171 pages of NASA transcripts.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on this one. This is followed in the transcript. They have their stifled laughter, and it doesn't say who's laughing. And the things. So
what does it say? There's like square brackets. Laughter.
Yeah, just laughter and giggling. A lot of that, and it's not really clear who because they're all kind of doing that. So then,
imagine the stenographer or whatever you call it taking the notes down at in Houston. Yeah.
So then Cernan, sort of heroically and with no regard for his personal safety, then he grabs a plastic bag and grabs the poop out of the air. And this seems like the end of the thing, right? But it's not.
I like the fact that in our notes here, you bolded with no regard for his personal safety. Like this is extremely dangerous after his lunar module just always starts spinning off and crashing into the moon.
Grabbing random poop out of the air is not
it's not something you want to do.
Not even if you got the plastic bag, it's not pleasant.
I tell you what, man, I don't have a dog, but I once picked up my when I was a kid, and my cousin was a few years younger than me, and we went for a walk with his damn dog, and that thing took a dump in the park. I was the older kid who ended up having to pick this thing up in a plastic bag. It is an experience I will never forget. And this was a big dog, and this was a big poo. It was not fun. You feel like I'm not going to describe how I felt, but it's, let's move on.
So normal mission tasks, they resume, but then shortly thereafter, a second bit of fecal matter comes floating along and then prompting another. All of them, again, they start denying it. This wasn't me. I don't know where this came from. And Stafford actually
insists. It was one of us for sure. We know that.
Yeah. Stafford actually insists at this point his poop was stickier than the one currently enjoying its freedom in space.
Stafford, man, come on.
Yeah, and
Too
Lung.
much information.
Yeah, Young likewise asserted that he stated his hit the bag, and this is where we're going to now talk about the actual bagged system, how they do this.
Oh, okay. This is okay. I got it. This is how.
Yeah, it's all tying together.
Yeah,
it's all coming together.
very nicely structured, by the way. Well done.
Yeah, thanks. This one took a long time. So going back here, so the bag here is referring to essentially how they did it. There was when they pooped, they had a bag.
High tech, guys. Oh no, you wrote decidedly low tech.
Yeah, no, and this we have the exact procedure here written as outlined in the Apollo Experience Report.
Oh, wow, okay.
Crew Provisions and Equipment Subsystem. It was published by NASA in March of 1972, and the exact procedure for going was as follows.
To use the FCA, the Fecal Collection Assembly, the crewman attaches the outer fecal bag properly and proceeds with fecal elimination. Upon completion of the action and subsequent sanitary cleansing, the tissues and refuse are placed in the inner fecal emesis bag. The crewman then removes the germicide pouch, cuts the outer protective seal, and places it in the inner bag. Finally, all items are placed into the outer fecal bag. The bag is sealed, the germicide pouch is ruptured by hand pressure, the bag is kneaded. That wasn't part of the quote. And the contents are stowed in the waste storage compartment. Nothing has proved more effective than the current system, which has proved adequate for all flights, although the crewmen have expressed a dislike for it. Yeah, no kidding. They're kneading their poo.
Yeah, just get it nice and worked in, get that germicidal pouch. So if your people are wondering why they did that, they were particularly looking to kill as many microbes as they could in it, because if you didn't, so you have this sealed bag and then you have
it'll
the
explode.
poop. Yeah, eventually the gases swell and it can burst the bag. Wow. But NASA had a backup just in case they did burst a bag and make as Carl put it, a fecal grenade. They planned for the contingency, as noted in another report.
If any fecal bags were to rupture during the mission, the waste stowage compartment could emit fecal odors. Therefore, a bladder and an overboard vent system have been placed in the compartment. The system contains a 215 micron filter, a check relief valve, and a vent valve to the urine overboard dump line. During boost, the waste stowage vent valve is opened to purge nitrogen wastes from the crew compartment. A check valve vents into the crew compartment at differential pressure of 2 psi. After the vent valve has been closed during a mission, the check valve vents if ruptured fecal bags create a pressure of 2 psi. Then the crewman, alerted by the fecal odor, can position the waste stowage valve to vent the odor overboard at periodic intervals. So the way they're alerted to the problem is smell?
Well, this is to try to get
that right?
Yeah, so they put it in this little compartment, and so if it bursts, then it ends up raising the pressure inside the compartment, and then so it'll automatically start venting, but then later they have to manually vent it just to keep the whole interior of the thing, which that's one thing about those spacecraft and stuff that they use. Smelly. The ISS, super smelly. Like, this is a thing, and you just get used to it, Like, you have humans in a closed environment, even with the filtration, it's going to get smelly and sweaty and not a good time. But, you get used to it pretty quick if you're there, supposedly. It's just when you first open the doors and you're like, oh, yeah, there's that good smell.
Yeah, I never thought about that. They don't occasionally make them all get in spacesuits and then just open the door and be like, I'm just going to flush everything out. Start again.
Yeah, so this is the thing. It's not known how this poop, because this poop in question had to have escaped the bag, but also the compartment. So it probably never got in the bag in the first place, and the astronaut just somehow misfired, into the bag thinking. And so, it's not quite known how this happened. But then nobody knew who did this. So this is where Carl and I spent a couple days doing research to try to figure out who done it and whose poop was this. So we went through the 171 pages along with some other stuff that we'll get into to try to solve the mystery. So what did we find? All three crew members denied it was theirs, even during it and in the aftermath. The most adamant was Stafford, who as noted, said his was more sticky than the ones that were around, or as I love this, as Carl succinctly put it,
a bold but otherwise fine tactic in the who smelt it dealt it game.
Yeah, then Cernan and Stafford also talked about going to the bathroom, but interestingly, Young never did in the transcript. He never said like, hey, I'm going to the bathroom. Like, this is something, if you go back a ways on that day, they do note, a couple times going to the bathroom, but Young does not ever say this. So that was significant. However, during the second turd incident, which I don't remember who said this, but it was Turdgate and Turdgate 2, The Reckoning. That's probably Carl.
Sounds like Carl.
Yeah. So Young did note in response to one of Stafford's assertions that mine was stickier than that. When Stafford said that, he said,
"And was too, it hit the back."
Yeah. So Young here is saying that he did. This would imply that he did go to the bathroom, even though it's not in any of the transcript anywhere. So he also, apparently all three of them pooped, was the point. They're all three suspects. But yeah, he likewise asserted his stuck to the bag. So if we're to believe Young and Stafford, it would seem to rule them out because they had the stickiness and the full bag and everything. And this current poop that they were gathering up was not sticky, apparently.
So it seems like Cernan's our man, right? He's the third.
Yeah, they both thought it was Cernan. So at least as far as the transcript reveals, this also seems to be perhaps the case because Cernan was the last one to go poop. As far as we can tell, of course, as noted, Young did not note when he went to the bathroom, but at least as far as the transcript notes, it was Cernan that was last. And the other thing is the Cernan, his expulsions were particularly noted to be not smelly. And so you would think if it was escaped early on, it would be not smelly because you would notice much quicker then. This again points it to him. And it's also noted that during the second incident, while Cernan did state,
"Here's another goddamn turd. What's the matter with you guys?"
So he thought the other two were to blame. But then they, of course, did their mine was sticky, thing. And then Cernan then backtracked a little stating,
"I don't know whose that is. I can neither claim it nor disclaim it." Oh, yes. Okay, Cernan. Now here we're coming to some conclusions.
Yeah, he's maybe not so certain here of whether he was. He's knowing he was seemingly the last person to do it. And then he laughs. He gives a chuckle in the thing it's recorded. But unfortunately...
Very importantly, what sort of laugh is that?
Yeah, exactly. The transcript.
Well,
yeah. Was it? Yeah, like you're saying, like a nervous little chuckle, or was he like laughing because he's like, yeah, this is just completely absurd because you literally have three human beings orbiting around the moon of all places, like 200,000 miles or so from Earth, in one of the most expensive pieces of engineering and advanced pieces of engineering ever constructed by mankind, and they have like poop floating around themselves. Yep. This is just a hilarious situation. So was he just laughing at the absurdity, or was it like you're saying, it's like a nervous little, yeah, it was probably me, but I'm not going to admit it.
And there's a whole lot of ways that line from the transcript could be read, like the reading it blankly. I don't know whose that is. I can neither claim nor disclaim it. It's kind of like, it could be like, I don't know whose that is. I can neither claim nor disclaim it. Like, I can neither confirm nor deny, but it's mine.
Yeah, but we all know I did it.
We all know what's up.
Yeah. So so then, not being satisfied there, we then dug a little deeper and we found the Apollo missions, as we mentioned. I can't remember if it was this episode or last, where they actually measured the fecal matter that came out of the astronauts that was stored, like when they got back.
Yes.
And so this is public record. You can go look it up, like see how much they pooped, and what the weight and all that sort of stuff. And we looked at that, and unfortunately, this did not.
Taking at NASA is
it's insane the records they keep, and a lot of it's just online, freely available for you to go search and read. And they did not. This did not reveal much. There wasn't enough of a difference. Like one person didn't have, or had significantly less poop than the others, unfortunately, because that would have, maybe pointed the finger a little bit because they're all eating the same thing. But it seems like it was probably Cernan. He was the last person. He had it seemed like he wasn't so sure, after the other two said they were stickier. He said his did not smell. This was specifically in the transcript where he noted that his poop wasn't very smelly that time.
Is Cernan still alive? I know these early astronauts are in their 80s these days.
Yeah, they're all really old, but there's actually a surprising amount of them that are still alive, which I don't know, maybe is not surprising because they were all in great shape.
It's not surprising given that they are physical specimens, yeah.
Yeah.
No, he passed away very recently, last year.
Oh, that's too bad.
Lived to the ripe old age of 82.
Oh yeah, so then we did note the so Young's fecal emissions, they were absent from the transcripts. Why were they absent? Everyone else's was there, and so there was Carl suggested perhaps some tampering from NASA to protect one of its most accomplished astronauts.
Wait, what does it mean by his fecal emissions were decidedly absent? Like he had to log when he was.
Well, they talked about it, and they're like, "Hey, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick." You know, they would say stuff like this, and it was all recorded and everything and written down. So they just
That'd be awesome if you had looked at the transcripts and it was just like that redacted.
This is great. Like, really, go read these transcripts of these missions. They're long, like I said. I mean, this is one day of transcripts, like 171 pages.
Wow!
But it's so interesting to just read their day-to-day conversations because, one, they're wildly inappropriate all the time and swearing every 2 seconds, and just kind of like they're joking around as they're going on. But it's just fascinating to read what they were talking about and things as they're working.
There are things like this that come out like through freedom of information requests, or when like in Discovery, like if someone's taken to court and they're like I remember when Bernie Madoff, the thing was going on, and all of his, credit card statements and everything became public record, and all of his family as well. And it was just like, there'd be news articles, and it'd be kind of like, let's have a look at like Bernie Madoff's son credit card statement from May. And it'd be like, okay. And you can see like everything he spends money on. It's just like a fascinating glimpse into the life of this like random billionaire dude, or like son of a billionaire who, just to get it, because you don't normally get to see this. And it's like, so he went out for like lunch for $2,000, and then he returned some socks to Macy's. And it's like, what's up with that? Just this fascinating like glimpse that you don't normally get.
So yeah, this is we concluded. I mean, so you did have Stafford was the first smeller is the feller rule. Does this extend here? But yeah, it seems like certain. That's who we decided. It was probably certain. It was his poop that was floating around in the command module there with them as they were orbiting the moon.
Dedicated in memory of Cernan.
Yeah, and his poop. His probable poop, I should say. We just thought that was kind of a fun fact. And this is like the thing today I found out, the BrainFood show. It's fun facts.
It is what we do, isn't it?
It's like when you're in a cocktail party, you need something interesting to say to kind of, you got those little circle of conversation. You want to inject yourself. Be like, hey guys.
Yeah. Bring
Apollo 10. Cernan poop.
I got a story for you. And when you're at those cocktail parties, don't forget to tell people where you heard that fact. The BrainFood show. Leave us a review on iTunes.
During the 1980s, they did upgrade the spacesuit bathroom system. So before they had, again, coming back, they had the condom-like device in the back stuck to their butt, like literally just like taped their butt kind of thing.
That is a weird thing. I got to look up some... No, I don't want to look up pictures of that.
Instead, they now go with, this is what they have since about the 1980s and to today even, they go with what they refer to as the maximum absorbency garments, which are just diapers. They're diapers. They call them maximum absorbency garments, but it's really just a diaper. But that sounds cooler when, NASA always has cool name for things.
Get your mag on. We're going out for a spacewalk.
Yeah, exactly. It's a mag. That's what they do. And so funny enough, the company that makes these diapers, the Absorbencies was the company name. They went out of business a long time ago. But NASA, in preparation for this, when they knew, they ordered several thousand of these diapers so that they could still use them, and they still have a good stock of a couple thousand, I think, for future missions. And so these diapers are basically, it's a diaper. That's it, but it's got a special sodium polyacrylate powder in it, which is super absorbent. So it's also very lightweight, and it'll absorb all the liquid in like an 8 to 12 hour, spacewalk.
Wow, spacewalks are 8 to 12 hours.
Yeah, I think they're more like 8 usually, but they can be 8. But in
the movies they always pop out for like 5 minutes.
No, because it's like a big deal just to get into the suit in the first place. Takes forever, and getting out of the suit, and this is like a whole ordeal. They want to, send them out there and not have
Hollywood's not doing that justice.
Yeah, well, in Hollywood they just slip on the suit.
Can you imagine? We need to go outside and fix the radar. Okay, well, begin the 4-hour process of getting into the suit, Jeff.
Exactly. It's quite an ordeal, and so they don't just hop into the suits and go out. But so
they always do in the movies, like, quick, get your helmets on, we're gonna lose pressure. It's like realistically, it's gonna take us a while.
This is not. So this works. These diapers work for these sort of stuff. But there is the problem of NASA has begun thinking about what about long term? What about on these Mars missions? What if something goes wrong? What if the astronauts need to be in their spacesuits for several days at a time? This diaper solution's really not going to work. So to get around the problem. In 2016, NASA decided to turn to the public, the general public, and they said, design us. I mean, clearly, up until this point, we can really see that NASA's not coming up with good stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we solve this problem? So that NASA made the Space Poop Challenge, is what they called it in 2016. Yes, they did. The idea here, they wanted to create, you had to create a fecal, urine, and menstrual management system that could sustain the astronauts' bodily expulsions comfortably for 144 hours. So that's 6 days.
Man.
But yeah,
this
and
is amazing.
This is funny because why 144 hours? Why was this chosen? And so it's not really clear, right? Why? But so we have Uncle John's Bathroom Reader, which you've probably seen published on Today. I found out sometime.
Very enjoyable stuff.
So yeah, we don't put them on the YouTube channel. I've never asked if they'd be okay with that. So but I'm sure they wouldn't care. But yeah, so we put them on there, and their theory on this, they had a funny theory. They actually had an article on this one. The hypothesis was that 12 dozen hours, and so another word for a dozen is gross.
I have to disagree here because a dozen is 12. A gross is 144. It's 12 dozen.
Yeah, 12 dozen gross. Yeah, exactly. The great gross.
No, that's a great gross is 1,728.
Oh, is it?
It is. Because of course, this is what I paid attention to in maths at school because it's called a gross. You know, like, so I looked this up and I was not proven wrong.
You are correct. You are correct.
It's basically a miracle because normally when this happens, it's like, oh, look, Damon was right. Today, though, bada boom.
Yeah, they so it is the great gross, and so Uncle John's, they missed out on the better, a great
You're
gross,
welcome,
not just a gross.
Listeners. Keeping everyone honest.
Yeah, and this is what I thought. Well, isn't that like the great gross? But yeah, there you go, Simon.
There you go, fact machine. And then my comment on this on the side of our document was, that would be a really great gross.
yeah.
Makes room shot sound.
Yeah. Either way, so we have perhaps they were thinking of the gross thing, but perhaps not. Who knows, really? But the point being, the overarching guidelines, so you need to have urine, fecal matter, menstrual fluids. They had to, this system, whatever you come up with, has to come up with that. And it has to be easily operated in the zero gravity conditions. And key, using the bulky gloves, which the spacesuits, at least the current spacesuits, really bulky gloves, really hard to do fine, motor work. So it has to be usable in that condition. And so, yeah, they just wanted to see what people would come up with. And the prize, $15,000 for first prize, $10,000 for second, $5,000 for third prize. That's a pretty good prize. And they gave them about 2.5 months to come up with the thing. They ended up with over 5,000 submissions. And the first prize is actually pretty brilliant. And it was made by he's an Air Force flight surgeon, Colonel Thatcher Carden.
Wow.
And he called it the Mace's Perennial Access and Toileting System. And this is a really, way better than anything NASA's ever come up with on spacesuit stuff. So he's basically created what essentially amounts to airlock in the crotch area, right? So it's just an airlock. And so what he's thinking here, he's a surgeon, of course, and the keyhole surgeries, which is those minimally invasive ones where they make cool. Yeah, where they make the tiny incision and then they put the stuff up and they go maybe throughout the body somewhere and then they do the surgery without actually, really opening the person up. So this was kind of what he was thinking when he created this, the inspiration. And so he's looking at this. And so he is thinking, all right, so we'll do the airlock right there and we'll do a similar sort of system where you can insert these tools into the airlock and then without, depressurizing and there's various tools he came up with that would do this. And so the general thing here, so for the pooping, he would have the inflatable bedpan that he was just this thing that you would insert, deflated. And then once it was in, you could use, there was a squeeze bulb valve thing that would then inflate it once it was, in the right spot. And he had,
sounds complicated.
Yeah. And so then he has a vacuum hose to suck the waste out of the bedpan. Then once the deed was done, they would, deflate it and pull it back out. And then so the
wiping.
Yeah, so he had another tool for you, sort of a bidet-like tool where they put it in, spray around, and then he had a separate tool again, this one, another tool that would go in, and it has like a terry cloth. It also has suction, and it also has terry cloth thing, and you would just kind of wipe around after you've washed. And then this is a genius because, okay, now you have this soiled terry cloth thing. So what are you going to do? Just pull it out and it's going to go through the valve and everything? No, instead, it has a separate pull system where you pull out from the center and then it ends up sort of inverting it, like turning a sock inside out. So now the terry cloth thing is inside out, so all the waste stuff is inside, and then you pull it out, and then you have a nice clean thing. And he also had the way he also designed some underwear that would go in, so you could change your underwear without actually having to get out of the suit. So he designed special underwear for this, using the airlock system. And for peeing, it was used a vacuum hose. So basically this little thing inserts. For a man, it was, man and woman, it's different shape, but appropriate end, and then you just pee. And then again, you could also use the bidet tool afterwards if you wanted to just sort of clean up everything around there and, all that. And yeah, this was his system that he came up with, and his prototype. You can actually go see if you Google NASA's Space Poop Challenge webpage, and then just go to the webpage. You can see his prototype. It looks pretty snazzy. Like it's a nice. This was a very professionally done little prototype.
You know what's most amazing about this? NASA got this at an absolute steal.
Yeah. I mean, they did have
$1,000, and it's crowdsourced. Yeah. That's just the prize. It's not like this guy had to win.
They had second and third prize, so it amounted to $30,000. And of course, there's the time to actually process through the 5,000 submissions and come up with the winner. But this is still a steal of a deal compared to what they would normally do, and way better than anything they've come up with.
Whenever I hear about military spending or whatever, it's like they spend like $400,000 on a screwdriver.
Yeah. And this is actually kind of a funny thing. So NASA used to do one of the ways, like the SpaceX and stuff comes up with making stuff a lot cheaper, was back then like the manufacturing of a lot of things. So you had like these nuts, the nuts and bolts. It wasn't quite as consistent, and now everything's computerized, and everything, you get these bolts that are very super high quality compared to back then. So NASA would have to spend just insane amounts of money for a bolt, a single bolt. And so this was, massively ramping up the price of things. And it's just because they needed to make sure it was a really good quality bolt. So it had to be, put through all this testing and extra manufacturing stuff. So they kind of had to custom order these sorts of things. And so SpaceX, sort of one of their arguments was, now the manufacturing today is so much better. So a lot of the stuff that we used to have to spend and get these special things, like you can just go to like the hardware store and get one that's good enough.
Of course, yeah.
And then of course through testing.
This is what Musk is doing, right? This is why.
Yeah. And so, of course, this also, when you do that, you have to go through and make certified and make sure this is actually the case and not just we think it's probably better. Yeah. So there is that. But this ends up being a lot of savings that they have made through this way. It's just like, manufacturing way better now that everything's computerized and everything very consistent. So we can save some money this way. So
you don't want to go for like your Tesco value bolts.
Yeah. But this was one of the things why, stuff back, like when they say like, this bolt costs $300. It's like, well,
it's not as ridiculous. I know this. I was kind of just messing around, but I was familiar with it's not that bad.
Yeah. Sometimes they're rolling in all the man hours that go into things. So it sounds like, oh, this toilet costs $30 million to develop. And it's like, there's a lot of, engineers working on it and getting, so it's not really like, that's where a lot of the cost comes. But anyways, yes, so this was the system he came up with, this Colonel Thatcher Carden, and it's quite ingenious, better than anything for spacesuits anyway that NASA had ever come up with. And it will allow not just 144 days, you could just stay in your spacesuit for quite a long time and be perfectly happy there.
I would still hold it.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. One of the things the Apollo astronauts would sometimes do is they would try to eat less rations, like not eat everything they were supposed to because it was so unpleasant an experience. Go to the bathroom in space. They were like, no, but the problem is some of the physiological stuff of when you go to space, like the way your kidneys react to things and the water in your body, you end up having to pee a lot more and stuff like this. So that's just kind of forced. But the pooping, they can at least control a little bit more. I mean, you're still going to poop more, but you can at least, if you just don't eat a lot, that can help.
I'd be like, wait, does fiber slow you down or speed you up?
Speed you up.
What's the opposite of fiber?
I don't know, like
whatever the opposite of fiber is, I'd be on that.
like processed pasta, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be getting all the pasta. It'd just be like, I'm just eating that.
Well, they had I don't know if the Americans do it, but the Russians do on the
Soyuz, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
I think so.
Yeah, so I'll go with that. Theirs they do before their missions. They actually give all the astronauts enemas to kind of clean them out, and so this
that sounds equally unpleasant.
Yeah, not super awesome, but they at least delays. I mean, they do actually. It's one of the things that their module actually does have a bathroom in it.
Get in here, Vasily. It's time for your enema before you go to space.
Yeah. So I don't know if the American astronauts do that or not, but I mean, I think, if you didn't good delay not going to poop in space, that might be all right. But the psoas actually has a bathroom in it, unlike the American capsules back then. You know,
really?
they put one in there, but it's rarely used
How
anymore
long
because
are you in that Soyuz thing for? It's not long.
yeah, not long, and that's why it's. I mean, they can be for a little while when they're going to dock with the ISS and stuff, but it's still not long enough with it. But combined with enema, they don't usually. I mean, they have to pee, but they don't have to. They don't have to poop. At least they can get around that problem. But it does have a bathroom in it, which we'll talk about in a little bit because it's almost the same design as the space shuttle era, which now we're going to get into a little bit more modern systems, which the space shuttle, the SOAS, and the ISS kind of all have a very similar system, which going back to what you guessed at was the relying on some air pressure, some suction to make things happen. And this is for males. The system uses a plastic funnel. It's just like a little, few inch long funnel. And and you kind of just aim for the entrance. So as one of the NASA trainers, Scott Weinstein, says,
we do not want men docking.
Yeah, because the suction, there's no relief valve.
You know what men don't want? Docking either.
Yeah,
They really don't want docking. They want it more. No. They want it less than you, Scott.
yeah. And this is so this now for the women. The female system is a little bit different. It is designed to go directly against the skin, and in this case, they put little vents in the little cup like shaped thing. Okay. And I could not find. Why don't they do that with the male one? Like, why isn't this a thing? And I was like, is this something they used to not do? And then eventually, like when women started going to space and they're like, hey, let's put some holes in it. Like, and that'll work. You still got the suction pulling stuff in. But I don't know. I was thinking maybe if your penis got like sucked too far in, then it would plug the vent holes. And then maybe that's a problem. So it's not quite an issue there with the women. I don't know.
This was what my first thought was, that, because we've already got some of the equipment, it's a slightly different, but they could still do it, right? Just
or maybe and so in that case they would have to put the vent holes really far down, and then maybe they were worried about like splatter or something. But it seems like that could be worked around too, because you do have the suction, and you could put little like angled things that come down inside. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. This sounds like a. I don't know why I know about this. I think it came up when I was on a really long bus ride sometime, and there wasn't a toilet on the bus. It's called a shiwi. Are you familiar with this device?
No.
It's essentially, it sounds like this sort of cupping thing that a woman can wear that basically so you pee into this kind of cup thing, which you press against yourself as a woman, and it puts it out a spout so you can pee standing up like a man. So like if you're like a weird toilet that you don't want to use, or if you want to pee at the side of the road, you can, there's a legitimate device called a shiwi, which allows for this.
The funny thing about this is this is one of the articles I was researching, and I had no clue. This is a lost skill with women. Women used to be able to pee standing up. It was a skill that you just practiced, and there's a certain way you do it. And I was looking, apparently the gypsies still use it sometimes, but this was actually where I came across this, and they were talking about it. It's just something mothers would teach their daughters, and at a certain point in history or in the 20th century, it just stopped being taught. And it's basically now, if you wanted to, the general procedure for those, 12% of women listening is to basically take your two fingers, spread apart the lips, pull back and up, back and up.
I love that you know about this in such depth.
Yes, because I was quite fascinated. I was like, you're kidding me. Like, this is a thing women, complain about, like when you're going camping or something. Obviously, you have to squat, and then it's hard to, don't want to get pee on your underwear or whatever. It's like, it's not a good time.
Yeah.
And so, and you're camping, so you can't exactly go take a bath or whatever. And this is just
the only thing that I feel like it's slightly familiar to is the difficulty of like when you are going to number 2 in the nature, and you're gonna pee on your trousers. If you're careful.
Exactly, and this is the problem. And apparently, it used to be like in the Old West, they were the women would just kind of off the wagon, in this way, rather than squatting. They would do this little thing, and it is something that apparently I was reading this transcript of someone a woman who was talking about it, and she learned about it, and then she was talking about like the general procedure, and she was talking about her practicing, and she practiced in the shower, and she said after a while she got it down. It took practice. It was not something that just like you just do. You don't want to just try it all willy-nilly out in the woods. You're going to pee all over yourself.
Just first time, I'm going to use that urinal.
She said after some practice, and now she's quite happy in the woods when she's going camping, is because she can do this without getting pee all over herself. But of course, you still want to have a little toilet paper for wiping and stuff. But
That's great.
it's pretty funny little aside that I don't know. I don't even remember what article this come up in. It was a long time ago. But it's buried in the archives if people want to Google. Today I found out like women peeing standing up.
I'm sure it's there. Okay, so now that should we get back to poo?
Yeah. Speaking of the archives, though, there was this one part, and I couldn't find it anywhere. Where it's some bonus fact. I know it's there somewhere, and today I found out I could not find it. Where we talk about an incident with the suction problem in the LEM. And I don't know, usually I'm really good at Googling this sort of thing, and I know exactly, I spend hours and hours on each of the articles, it's kind of in your brain vaguely. And I know this was a bonus fact somewhere where we talked about the exact system and an incident with the pressurization problem with getting stuck, but I couldn't find it. So anyways, back to the in the sort of the space shuttle and the ISS. So they have, they all kind of have, as I said, a similar system. So this funnel is attached to a tube, which then has some suction, as we said, and it sort of just sucks stuff out. But, even like going back to the Apollo 9, because as we mentioned before, well, they did have the weird bagged poop system. They did in the Apollo missions, they did have the suction thing, as we mentioned briefly, where kind of a similar thing that they would eject from space. And I think that's in the movie Apollo 13. They show that, they show the little constellation Orion, I think he says.
Yeah, and it all freezes. That was cool.
Yeah, and actually the Apollo 9 astronaut Rusty Schweickart, he noted of this.
The most beautiful site in orbit, or one of the most beautiful sites, is a urine dump at sunset.
Yeah, so this is what they did with the pee after they were done. In the ISS, it's a little different. In the ISS, they actually keep the pee and they put it in a central tank, and then they boil it off and collect the vapor. And I mean, obviously, they're staying up there longer. Any water they can recover to use for drinking or whatever is good. Yeah, so they have like a whole filtration system, and they pull the water out of the air, because when you're just breathing, you're expelling quite a bit of water just in your breath.
Oh yeah, you go camping and you're inside a tent and you see it all.
Yeah, exactly. So they also collect this water, they mix it all together, they purify, filter it, all that, and then the astronauts get to drink it, and it's it's quite clean at that point.
It's quite clean.
Yeah,
it's not perfect. It's still a little bit yellow.
So yeah, pretty much for the men, you just want to avoid the whole getting sucked in issue. But speaking of getting sucked in, though, on the other side of things with the space shuttle, once they moved beyond the bag system, they have a bowl, and it has suction. But in this case, you actually want a good. They have a toilet bowl.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's like a
that sounds
thing,
nice
but
comparatively.
Yeah, but it's actually still not nice, because it's a really hard thing to do, and it gets kind of worse, as we'll say. So the
of course it does.
Yeah. So you have the bowl, it has suction. You need a good seal,
Yeah.
But the problem is, like, how do you get a good seal when you're floating around in space? You're in free fall around the Earth the whole time. So how do you do this? And so they actually train for this, and in the training and in the thing, just to make sure you get a good seal before you go, they have like a foot straps and little thigh braces and stuff. So you can kind of just get yourself. But then on top of that, you need to see that you got a good seal first before you start going. So they also have a camera in the toilet, so you can see what's going on down there.
Wow,
make sure everything's working.
Right.
Yeah, and so they do this in the training too. Obviously, in the training unit, you don't actually go to the bathroom, but you do practice this a lot to make sure you get it right, because it gets pretty messy if you don't know what you're doing. Like if they were just send them up there and be like, yeah, figure it out.
They're just like, this is a little bit awkward, but
yeah. So they have a toilet positional trainer practice unit, which they use, and yeah, we got a video camera, the whole thing. And yeah, so this is the procedure now. Astronauts still hate it. It's not a good time to go to the bathroom, but some of them have fun with the going to the bathroom. Like astronaut Story Musgrave, he noted that he preferred to pee upside down,
stating, "Don't just use the bathroom like you would on the ground. Take advantage of being weightless and try out some new things." Helpful advice for all aspiring astronauts there, Story.
Yeah, because it was funny, because I can't remember the other astronaut was talking about this, that he was telling this to. He was noting that he would like look over, and so they have like a little curtain that you can pull, so you can go to the bathroom, and not really privacy, but at least no one's looking at you. And so he would like see Story Musgraves, his like socks would be up in the air, like above the curtains, and he'd be like, "Are you upside down?" And
well,
he's
I was
like,
going to ask, like,
have fun with this.
Is there an upside down in space? Like,
I mean, but you can sort of oriented, compared to the toilet, you're upside down, or I should say in this case, the little suction tube thing.
I've got maybe a little follow up for next time.
Yeah.
This might be another one of those it's like space dementia. It's not a real thing, as we talked about in the last episode. But
Yeah.
like I read somewhere, and this is just vague memory, probably wrong, Simon speaking here. But that if you're on the ISS and like you're floating through space, and it's been a while, you've been going about your business or whatever, and you're like, this is the floor, this is the ceiling, this is the floor, this is the ceiling. Like that's your orientation. And then you come across someone else who's just happily working, but they're upside down. Apparently, this can like be a difficult mental thing to process. Like people are like, but what, how? And it can be a problem for astronauts that they don't know what's up.
I could see that. I mean, in some of the units, I imagine like the computer screens are oriented a certain way and stuff. But then, like,
then the other astronauts just like, it's just a prank, bro.
Yeah, we're all just free falling around space, around the Earth. So
I like that guy take advantage of being weightless and try some new things out. Like,
well, that's what he was
often what I like to do. Like, I experiment when peeing.
Yeah, the other astronaut was totally just like, why is your socks up in the air? Like, what's happening here?
Just a prank, bro.
Yeah, but with the pooping, they don't have that quite option. They have to get a good seal. They turn it on, they go, and then I should also mention they have the bags. It's like they don't actually expel it into space because they don't want flying poop around the Earth. I mean,
when did we start caring about space debris?
Well, in this case, it's mostly water too. I mean, what is it, like 80% water or something like that? So it wouldn't be. I mean, it would quickly evaporate off, and then you just have this little dried out, whatever dust, space dust. But yeah, they still don't, and so they bag it. They have this they have these fabric bags now though, not plastic. So basically they go poop in the thing, and then they twist off the bag. It sucks into the bag. That's a fabric bag, so it's almost like a vacuum cleaner. Some of those like the HEPA filter like type systems, vacuum cleaners. So it goes in, so that's why they're fabric, so the air can kind of suck through. And then so they'll twist it off, to tie it, and then they remove it, and then they store it basically at that point. So that is how they do it. And it's storing your poop in bags is not something any astronaut seems to enjoy.
No,
it's understandable.
Do they suck the water out of it and then recycle that, or is that's water lost?
No, I don't think they do in that case. Which I mean, they could. It's a lot of water there.
I think they did it in that movie with Matt Damon.
Yeah, well, he used it for the bacteria to get the soil bacteria that needed to grow the.
Right, but when he had it was all super dry when he was taking it out of those bags.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I guess
it's like dust.
That's to get rid of the moisture, and then they vacuum packed it to, I assume, make it so they don't have the exploding problem. If they even thought about it at all but that book, the book it was based on, he thought about this sort of thing a lot. So
Dude,
I'm sure.
That's amazing.
I have not read the book, but I know transcripts and stuff. I've read little snippets, and he definitely seems to have done his homework. So that is probably what he was thinking, if that part is mentioned.
Yeah, he's got a new book out, which I've been meaning to read.
Really?
Artemis or something. Yeah, I've seen it in bookstores. What's the name of that book? It's not Mission to Mars. That's that movie. The Martian. I don't remember his name, but great. The book's
self-published.
I think you really love the book. It really gets into detail.
Yeah, that was a self-published book, right? Initially,
yeah. Sure. Well, it was a blog initially, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know.
I think he wrote it like one thing a month, like a chapter or something, and then he published it all as a book, and then it became a huge thing.
So now in the ISS and the others, they do have some, like, if you're wondering, they do have toilet paper, and they have they don't use the bidet because obviously that would get water everywhere. But I don't know if you're sealed. I guess they could have used it, but that is a waste of water probably for what they're water is very valuable in that context. So yeah, they also have gloves and disinfectant wipes because things sometimes do not go as planned. As so Captain Sunita Williams noted.
The number one stuff can really get all over the place if you don't aim correctly.
So, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes they've had toilet malfunctions where the toilet just stops working right, and they got to clean it or try to fix it in flight, and that doesn't always work. And sometimes, so they've had issues over the years, and so they have gloves and disinfectant wipes just in case. But there's good news on the horizon. Besides that Colonel Thatcher Carden's system for the spacesuit, which is now a superior thing. NASA is also currently working on, and I believe it's probably almost done at this point because they're planning to debut it later this year on the ISS.
I'm with bated breath. Am I waiting for this?
The new Universal Waste Management System, and it's very similar to the other systems. However, it's much more compact, and supposedly, however they've designed it, it's not clear at this point. It's a lot nicer to use, apparently, a little more comfortable to use, and smaller because they want small weight because sending stuff to Mars is expensive.
That's something your astronauts will look forward to, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Never did I think I would have such a lengthy conversation about astronauts doing their business in space and practicing on the ground with cameras, I assume looking at their own butts.
And see this stuff. Yeah.
And keyhole surgery applied to long-term pooping in a spacesuit solutions.
Yeah.
This is a weird one. Anything else?
No, I think that's everything for this one.
Let me wrap it up then. Thank you everybody for listening. As always, leave us a review. iTunes, Podcast Addict. I can only ever remember Podcast Addict because that's the one I used to have on my Android phone, but I know there are more popular ones and all of this
you
stuff.
got Castbox is huge.
Yes.
Spotify, Stitcher, and now Google Podcasts, which is I think the best of them all. I mean, which isn't saying that much, but it is actually seems like it's a pretty good one in the limited use I've had of it so far. It seems quite good, definitely compared to the others.
Leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Any platform you like. Also, drop us an email, podcast@todayifoundout.com, or say hi on Twitter, #BrainFoodShow. I'm becoming a better podcaster with time, getting my plugs in. All right. See you all in the next episode. I think we're continuing our space series. There's one more,
right? There's more than one more.
There's jolly good. I like this.
There's a few more. And we actually, to be honest, the initial plan I drew up for it was this outline that would have been 30 or 40 episodes probably.
Then we would become the space show.
Yeah, let's just cap it at probably going to be 5 to 7.
Wow.
For this time around. We still
are becoming the space show.
Yeah, but it'll only last a few weeks and then we'll move on to something else. But it'll be like that, and then we'll move on to something else, and then someday we'll circle back around and do some more interesting space stuff because it's always fun.
I love it. I even love talking about astronauts pooping in space today. All right, until next time. A bold but otherwise fine tactic in the Who Smelt It, Dealt It game.